Hey there. Uh, really sorry for being late today. I was having some technical difficulty. Okay, what are we trying to do? Today, we are going to be making Madeleines. Madeleines, one of my very, very favorite things to make in the pastry kitchen, and it is one of those things that would be really easy to throw together and really elegant way to celebrate mom for Mother's Day. Okay, and there's no special equipment really necessary except for the Madeleine pan itself, which is just this shell-shaped pan. Very easy to find these. They're all over Amazon, and of course, you can find them at Goodwill and that kind of thing. So the very first thing we're going to do is, while I'm continuing the intro here, is I'm just going to throw a pot of, just throw this pot here, and I'm going to make some brown butter before we get too far down our discussion. I'm going to talk a bit about Madeleines and why I love them so much. And the thing we're going to do is take this, put it onto a medium heat, and we're going to let it go for a little bit at a medium heat. One of the things that a lot of people do with brown butter is maybe go too hot too fast and they end up burning it. That's not what we want. So we're going to cook this down. It's going to make a bunch of popping noises. We'll talk about those. As a matter of fact, here it's making those popping noises already. Listen to that. There you go. And that is the water being cooked out of the butter. And the popping noises, once the butter, so what we're going to be listening for is for the butter to become silent. So we're going to turn this, like I said, down on a medium heat. And when the butter goes silent, then it'll start to foam. It'll get a kind of a solid foam on top, similar to what you might find on a beer, like the head foam on a beer, and then we can swirl it, and that will open up in the middle, and we can see the nuttiness on the inside. So more on that in a minute. I'll show you when we get there. But okay, so what are we doing? We're making Madeleines. We're making two kinds of Madeleines today. We're making first a very classic French lemon Madeleine. And then we're going to skip on down to the Mediterranean, and we're going to make an olive oil rosemary Madeleine. So we have two different kinds. I'm going to show you one way to fold the napkins very nicely, and we're going to powder them with some powdered sugar and make a little pot of tea. And this will be sort of a Mother's Day midday high tea kind of thing that you could do. And it'd be really fun and lovely for mom. So Madeleines. Madeleines are one of the very first things I encountered when I went into the pastry kitchen. So I went to work at a place for a short time called Restaurant Daniel. It's a 3 Michelin star restaurant in New York. And I was in the pastry kitchen, and I was basically in charge of Madeleines for a couple of weeks, and I really began to love them. And it's really, really simple. We have flour, we have baking powder, vanilla, lemon, sugar, salt. That is it. I mean, really, there's nothing special here. It comes together in a flash. It really does come together in a flash. And then what you want to do is put it into a piping bag, and then put that piping bag into the fridge, let it soak, and let it come together for a while. So check this out. So we have our initial, it's still bubbling. I can still hear the water in there, so we're not going to mess around too much with that butter. But that is going to be a critical part of our classic French Madeleine. So we're going to throw 3 eggs into this bowl here. We throw 3 eggs in there real fast. Let me get them. We have these beautiful eggs from a guy that we know. He is he has a farm with some fresh farm eggs. So this is super cool. Not grocery store eggs, but for realsies eggs, you might say. So we got 3 of those. We're going to throw in the sugar, the salt, and the baking powder, vanilla, and just whip this together until it is sort of light and fluffy-ish. And we're going to do both of these in the same bowl with the same whisk, because it is so, this whole thing, it's not that it's low effort necessarily, but it's one of those things where you don't have to put in a whole lot of work, but you know, you end up putting in a whole lot of care, and it makes up for not doing a whole lot of work per se, right? So we're going to throw that in, boom, bring that together in there, just like that. Let's get every little bit of that in there. Yeah, a little bit of care goes a long way, especially with Mom. So there we go. And now I'm going to whisk these together. And all right, listening to our butter, and we can see that the butter is still. This is not a thick foam. This is still a watery bubbles. But do you see how the foam is getting thicker? So we're going to keep going with that. Whisk, whisk, whisk. Whisk, whisk, whisk. Just like that. And while we're waiting on that, I'm going to show you. Let's talk really quick about our piping bags. I have these 16-inch piping bags. Oh, you know what? We need to throw the oven on. Oven on 375. Bake. 375. Boom. Start. All right. The piping bags. This is a 16-inch disposable piping bag. I generally don't like disposable piping bags, but this is the right tool for this particular job. The other thing is I have this vase, and what I'm going to do is throw the vase or the piping bag into the vase. I'm going to shove it down in there, fold it over the end, and that way I don't have to fiddle around with my piping bag and holding it and scooping it, because it just sits like that. How handy is that? Okay, so we'll set that aside. Here we go. Now, this is what I was talking about. And I'm going to slowly, because this is super hot, I'm going to slowly work this in. And I'm going to work it in from kind of a height here, because it is very, very hot, and I don't want it to cook the eggs. I don't want it to cook the eggs. I want it to cool as I'm drizzling it in. Be very, 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 very careful here. Just like that. Very, very careful. It's very steamy. And you see how I'm sort of like, it's running down the side of the pot. And I've done this for quite a while, so I've got the aim down a little bit. See, it's hitting the edge of the pot and running off to the back, and it's shooting off there. So I'm actually not holding the pot over the bowl itself. I'm holding it kind of ahead of the bowl, because the trajectory of the fat there, the trajectory. Keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. And if I let this cool, it would be a lot easier, but doing this for the sake of television, so to speak. So I'm trying to do it on the fly. If this wasn't us doing the live show here, I might wait maybe 5 minutes, take this off of the heat entirely, wait 5 minutes or so. I'll get the last little bit in there. There we go, last little bit. Last little bit. There we go, get our nice little chunks of browned butter in there. And this is what we've ended up with. Some of it's very brown, and we're going to throw our flour in and just mix it together very fast, just like that. Boom. We're not going to bring it together any more than that. We don't want it to be over mixed. Just going to throw it like that. Boom. We have our piping bag. We're going to pour this in thusly, just like that. Boom, 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 boom. Into the piping bag it goes. Now I'm going to rinse this out in just a second, but the first thing, before I rinse, I'm going to raise this up because it is warm. It is not hot. It is warm to the touch, but not hot at all, which is exactly what we want. And I'm going to take a little Scotch tape, just like this, and drop this Scotch tape around the end, just like that. It is a little fiddly, but boom. Now this will go in the fridge for at least an hour, maybe 2, maybe 3. Overnight is fine, and it's very flippy floppy. I can feel that. But after it cools, let's get the other one. Here it is. After it cools, it is much more squishy. It's much more squishy, and that is what we want for our classic Madelines. So there we go. I'm going to rinse these really quick because I will want to use those for the next one. Just 1 second. And then we will use it for the for the Mediterranean ones. The Mediterranean Madelines. So yeah, so Madelines were basically the thing I was in charge of as a young pastry chef at Restaurant Daniel, and every single meal that they sent out, there was a little bowl of Madelines that came out, folded up in a napkin with some powdered sugar, and it was a really elegant and lovely thing. And that was my job, and I felt really honored, actually, at the time, to be in charge of this thing that was the last encounter of the evening, sort of finishing off the evening for everyone. And I thought that was super cool. So Madelines stuck with me, and I've had kind of a special relationship with Madelines ever since. They're fantastic little desserts and a great way to spend a little time after dinner, eating a couple of Madelines, dunking them in some tea, and having some nice conversation. What a great way to end a beautiful meal. So, all right, let's go ahead and throw these together. We have our Madeleine pan. I'm going to spray this down with a little bit of fat and then fill these up roughly 3/4 of the way. And these are going to cook fairly quickly. It's only going to be about 10 minutes. So let's hit this with a little avocado spray like this. Just like that. Super easy. Just like that. Then I'm going to cut off the end. Let's say about there is good. And I'm going to fill it up. Boom, just like that. And it will spread out on the inside of the pan here. And boom. And you just give it a couple of minutes. And this is enough in this recipe, which you can find on the website, easecake.shop. You can find on our blog. This one is the classic French Madeleine. It's like a brown butter classic French Madeleine, and it makes enough for, I'd say, probably 2 or 3 pans here. Probably 3. The next one that we have is enough really just for the 1 pan. So it kind of depends on the size of your of your Madeline shells that are coming out. I've seen there's some minis, which are super cool, and then there's some really big, kind of awkward ones. I don't like those. I think this is a much more traditional size, say 3 inches long or so. The minis are super fun. They cook really fast, and so you got to be careful because they go so quickly. Oh, I may have filled a couple of these a little too much, and just like that, boom. Okay, and so we have that much left over. And I'll pop these into the oven. Straight forward, like that. Yeah, get in there. There we are. The other thing to think about with the Madeline pan is Madeline pans are often made of this very thin metal and thin aluminum and stuff, and you might be tempted to go get one that is a cast iron or something, or silicone. I would suggest not doing that. And the reason why is because these tin pans are small enough to transfer heat very quickly. And the cast iron ones, they take a while, and really what you want is a spring in here. You want what's called oven spring, and that's how we get this nice hump, this little belly on top of the Madelines. You'll see in a minute. And if the silicone ones also, it insulates the bottom a bit more than this. So having kind of a thin, cheap metal Madeline pan is actually the way to go. Which sounds silly. Don't usually want the thin, cheap stuff, but there we go. That's what we want. All right. Next is, I'm going to put this back in the fridge. Next is the Mediterranean one, and that starts off with 1 whole egg. And you know what? While we're doing this, I'm going to start some water. I'm going to start some water here in this kettle because we have some fancy tea, and we're going to make some fancy tea and have tea and Madeleines in just a minute. So that'll be that. So while the water's going, we're going to work on our Mediterranean Madeleines. Whoop. I didn't see that, but I just dropped an egg on the floor. That's all right. Or dropped an egg on the counter. But I got it. I survived. The egg did not. Here we go. All right, coming back at you with 1 egg yolk on our in our bowl. So we have 1 egg and 1 egg yolk, just like that. Okay, and similar to what we had before, we have sugar, baking powder, olive oil, vanilla, rosemary, and flour. So we're going to add these kind of in that order a little bit. So there we go. The baking powder is in there. The rosemary is in there. Or sorry, a little salt in there. Where's my baking powder? Here it is. I like measuring things like little powders, like the baking powder, on my mini scale, and using a little piece of parchment to do that. There we go. So throw all that together just like that, and into the bowl it goes just like that. Now I'm going to whisk this until it gets kind of a light in color. This one is a lot less a lot less work in that, or a lot less attention necessary, because we're not browning butter, so there's not the potential of butter burning. But it doesn't make it any less special, though, or less fun, or less interesting. So if you want to make this, I suggest you do so. It's super awesome. All right, so I'm going to whisk this together till it starts to lighten in color a little bit, just like that. starts to lighten in color, and then I'm going to drizzle in this olive oil. And this is a fairly good quality olive oil. It's not the chintzy stuff. And what I'm going to do is let my hand rest on the side of the bowl to prevent it moving around too much. You can put a wet rag in a donut ring down there, and that will hold it, but I'm just going to put my hand right here and then do a little bit of a drizzle with my fingers and then just work it in, just like that. And let the motion of the ocean here work all of this in. It doesn't have to be too vigorous or anything like that. We're just trying to incorporate. This is kind of how you would do a dressing, but like a salad dressing. So it's a light emulsion. Simple as that. Boom, 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 boom. In it goes.